thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about mouse and keyboard. So the purpose of this conversation is Rainbow Six Siege, mouse and keyboard. We know that there are some console games that allow you to use mouse and keyboard natively. However, there are ways out there that you can use a mouse and keyboard on games like Rainbow Six Siege for console that aren't supposed to support mouse and keyboard. The reason for this conversation is just to give you a platform to say, why you do it, what your thoughts are on it, whether or not you still do it, and all that kind of thing. So the first question for me is just to get a bit of history from you is, like, how long have you been playing Rainbow Six Siege on console? And do you still play on console?
So I've been playing Rainbow Six Siege since round about midway through Operation Health, and I've been playing it pretty much daily ever since. I've just been hooked to the game. I went mouse and keyboard, I'm trying to remember roughly when. I think it was a couple seasons after Ember Rise, and I was mouse and keyboard for 2 or 3 seasons, and then for the last couple of seasons I've went back to controller. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I am still on console.
Okay, so right, so you've been playing Operation Health. I think was just after I started. I started on Velvet Shell, so you've been playing for almost as long as I have. So and like you said, you moved over to it just a couple of seasons after Ember Rise. So you didn't start out with mouse and keyboard. You started on a controller, just like the rest of us. Would you say that when you were on controller, would you say that you were a good player on it? Do you feel like you achieved everything you could? Did you hit diamond, or what was your skill level back then in the day?
So originally, back in Health to Ember Rise, I was more of a casual player. I played the game for fun. I wasn't too invested in ranked. It was mainly I think it was the season before Ember Rise where I started having ambitions for playing competitively, and that's when ranked became more of an option for me. So I eventually joined a team around about this time, played controller for that season, and I think I got Plat 3 in that season when I started actually going through ranked. So my controller level was maybe Plat 3, Plat 2, but that was about it. And then when I went to mouse and keyboard, it's undeniable that mouse and keyboard gives an unfair advantage. And so when I went onto mouse and keyboard, I was still about Plat 1. I never actually managed to make it to diamond. Which was to me it's a shame, but at the same time it's not a rank I deserved, and I will admit I didn't deserve the Plat 1 because I was on mouse and keyboard. So I've actually so my rank around about originally, I can easily say when I first started out on Siege I was complete and utter dog shit. Easily, because around about this time you could still queue with anybody regardless of elo. So my friends would use me to play and hit diamond and shit. So I think right about this time when I was playing casually, I was only really playing ranked with IRLs. So I would think right about that time when I first started playing I was probably about bronze or silver. But now I'm about mid plat, high plat on controller.
Okay, medium to high platinum on controller. But so have you never been diamond?
I haven't actually hit diamond, no.
Right, okay. Yeah, I thought that's what you were saying. Okay.
Yeah.
So although you say it gives you an advantage, I mean, so for you, I only even gave you a 1 rank advantage. Because I think you said on controller you like Platinum 3, Platinum 2, but Platinum 1's been your limit with mouse and keyboard. Okay. And what was it? So you talked about wanting to play it more competitively. I mean, was that your key reason for moving to mouse and keyboard? You thought, I want to play it more competitively. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is by getting that edge? Or was there something else?
So kind of. When I went competitive, I think the first 2 seasons I played competitively, I was controller, and I was playing for a team. We were only really doing ESL, and I was on a team called. I still don't even know what the abbreviation is to this day. I think it was genuinely just MnK as a name. It wasn't even abbreviated.
Just thought it sounded cool.
But it was around this time where our team leader called. He got drunk one day and just randomly bought a and then he was performing much better, And I was like, oh, maybe I'll buy one for a joke and just, see if it's any better. And I started using them, and I was obviously performing a lot better in games and stuff. But for me, mouse and keyboard got to a point where I was getting bored of playing on it because I would win games easily, or we would just get steamrolled by other mouse and keyboard players who have had much more experience. So ultimately, like, I can see the appeal for mouse and keyboard as well is like it's fun to play on. But at the end of the day, most people who are using it are aware of the hate they're going to get anyway, but they choose to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So like initially for competitive, I mainly got it just for a dumb joke, but then it got to a point where like I was enjoying it, but I just hated playing the game because of it, and I started losing motivation because of mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, because funnily enough, the other guy that one of the other guys that I've spoken to about this said pretty much exactly the same. But it was after we finished recording, and he just brought up the fact that it just became too straightforward, a little bit too easy, and it just lost interest because it just wasn't, he wasn't feeling that sense of achievement anymore from doing it. So it's interesting to hear that that's sort of across the board. That's kind of like a common way that you start to feel about it after a while. So based on what you've said then, I guess your mouse and keyboard usage, you would use that in ranked, unranked, and any possible playlist. You didn't care. It was just that's the way you play games now, is mouse and keyboard. So whatever the playlist, you were going to use mouse and keyboard. Yeah,
pretty much.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, that's fair enough. Have you ever played first-person shooters on PC? Yeah,
I played Rainbow Six using the GeForce Now application on my laptop on PC, and that's pretty much my main experience with shooters on PC.
And how do you feel? Because my understanding is that going from a PC mouse and keyboard to one on a console, it's still not exactly the same because of the input and the way it actually does the input. There's still like an assistance or whatever, because it thinks it's a controller. What would you call the difference between going from console to PC with a mouse and keyboard for a game like Rainbow Six Siege? I mean, is it like night and day, or is it almost imperceptible? How does it feel to you?
It is somewhat night and day. What I found when I went to PC was PC is significantly more fast paced than it is on console. And I actually preferred playing mouse and keyboard on PC, which is actually part of the reason why I left mouse and keyboard a couple of seasons ago, because I had this platform and this this program where I could play on PC, so I no longer felt the need to play mouse and keyboard on console. I could play the game on console as intended with a controller, and actually enjoy it. And if I wanted to hit some sick shots or whatever, I would just move over to PC.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting way to look at it. So you talked about, people know that it's cheating and it's an advantage. How did it feel? I mean, you've talked about the getting a bit bored or losing motivation. How did it feel to you playing against people that were using a controller and I don't know, I want to make sure I use the right words. Let's say walking all over them. It's clearly an easier fight for you because you have mouse and keyboard. How did it actually feel coming out of those wins? Did you feel empty? Did you not care? Or what was the effect it had on you?
So for certain games, if you win 4-0, it's like, oh, that was easy. But at the end of the day, it just didn't feel as gratifying to win those games on mouse and keyboard as it does to play on controller. There isn't as much of you don't feel the sense of you've done well, you've performed well, you've done something really good, and you're doing good at a game that you enjoy. On mouse and keyboard, it turned into a sense of, oh well, that's another game, let's go into another one.
Yeah. Do you find that using a mouse and keyboard versus a controller, that it impacts the way that you would play the game? Because I know, I mean, I don't compete at the levels where people really use mouse and keyboard. I think I probably experienced it 2 or 3 times or 4 times. I'm not great at spotting it, to be honest with you. I'm old. My thumbs don't move as well as the youngsters, and everything that the kids do on a controller just looks unnatural to me anyway. So I don't think I've really noticed it that much. But with people, because I cast in a competitive scene, because I cast competitive games, obviously mouse and keyboard is a big thing, and I cast for like diamond champion level players, and they'll see it a lot more at their skill level, and they say to me that this guy, you can tell by the confidence, the way he swings doors and all that kind of thing, that he's using mouse and keyboard. Do you feel that affects you in that way? Do you think that you play different with a mouse and keyboard just because you feel like you've got that extra edge?
Nowadays, like towards the end of my mouse and keyboard experience, I was a lot more confident in swinging people for, you know, the kill and shit.
Yeah.
Initially, it wasn't really like that. When you first pick up when you plug it in and you set it up, you play essentially, and obviously mechanically with your mouse and keyboard, you're not gonna, you know, move around the same, but the mindset stays the same, and it takes a while to shift the controller mindset to the mouse and keyboard mindset. So when you do eventually get used to using a mouse and a keyboard on console, you're more confident in the gunfights you take, and ultimately there is a development factor in you know, game sense as well with mouse and keyboard, because if you're playing at a higher level because of mouse and keyboard, you're going to gain the mindset of, so say you're going from gold to plat, you'll move into the plat mindset, and then you'll have that if you ever decide to switch back.
Yeah, because it's like a different game at that point, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we think about what you said about the ranks and the fact that actually going to mouse and keyboard didn't boost you up to a crazy height on ranks, I say that Platinum 1's only like 1 away from the maximum that you could achieve at the time anyway. But do you, now that you've gone back to controller, are you still hitting the Platinum 1s, or are you now back down there in the Platinum 2 and Platinum 3?
Yeah, I'm currently like sitting quite consistently Plat 2. I'll get to maybe 2 games from Plat 1, and then I'll end up going on a losing streak.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, but as it stands right now for playing Siege, I know I have the potential on controller to actually get into Plat 1 and possibly even Diamond.
Right.
For me, the reason I haven't actually hit these ranks and controllers mostly due to just a lack of confidence in gunfights, but that's mainly because only recently I've been playing more ranked. After I left mouse and keyboard, I went, fuck it, I'm just gonna go back and chill and casual and unranked and have fun, especially with the release of the battle pass. I would just play unranked, have fun, get the points done, just get it done, go back to playing crap like Minecraft and just generally enjoying games. And it actually took me a good season and a half to actually go back into Siege and go back into ranked before I actually started enjoying the game again, especially because like at the end of mouse and keyboard, I just didn't have the motivation to play the game anymore. It got to a point where I resented the game to a point where I just didn't want I just didn't want to play the game anymore, because I was just sick and tired of the same shit over and over.
Yeah.
And like some of the hate messages you'd get from it was actually kind of the reason why I stopped doing it. Like, I can be tolerable, but there comes a point where like you can only take so much abuse.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, you know, I can understand where the hate and the anger would come from, because, you know, mouse and keyboard has, you know, better ability for aiming. You're more likely to win your gunfights if you've got good aim on controller. No, sorry, on mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people who are pissed off at mouse and keyboard players don't realize that obviously people who are playing mouse and keyboard are still humans, and people can only take so much. And I was getting quite a bit of hate at one point, where I just stopped playing the game for a whole month and just went. I genuinely just uninstalled the game because I just couldn't stand it. Especially with a lot of stuff happening at home with my parents. It was just a rough time for me, and I just didn't need this extra hate added on to a rough time for me.
That makes sense. Okay, so to go back to controller then, I mean, do you think even if you hadn't got that hate, do you think you'd still have gone back to controller because of the way you felt, or do you think that hate was a big driver for you that just really brought it home and was the final bit that said, you know, I'm just going to give up because I don't need this anymore?
I think the hate was more of a factor on top of going back. It was mainly a case of the lack of motivation because games were either coming naturally or just, you know, or like coming against other more experienced mouse and keyboard players. So it was either the easy wins or just getting smacked by that 5 stack of MnK people.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have add on the hate and then the boredom from playing the game. Like even if I wasn't getting the hate, I was already considering to go back to controller because the game became really boring, and I just didn't want to play. Which goes back to when I uninstalled the game. When I kept it was just this like week of just constant hate from like the same people just because of that one ranked game, and it just lasted like a whole week. And it just got to a point where I just gave up. I like put this back in its box, chucked it under my bed, didn't look at it for a whole month, and then went back to Siege a month later on controller, and that's it.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess going back to the point then that you mentioned about wanting to play competitively and then the getting bored of it, I guess. Yeah. I mean, when I sit here and listen to you and other people talking about it, I guess it makes sense in my mind where people say, oh, it's to be more competitive, but then when you're going into that field and actually you've gone to a degree, I guess, the opposite of being competitive, because you're now just at a level that other people can't compete in. You're not actually being competitive.
Yeah.
And that's why you got bored of it, is because, well, I wanted competition, but it's actually not competition anymore. You want the achievement. You want to feel like you've earned something. And that's helped drive you back to controller. I hadn't thought about it that way. How do you feel then? So now you've gone back to controller. How do you feel when you come up against players that are using mouse and keyboard? Do you shrug it off, or I mean, you don't? I'm guessing you don't sound like the kind of guy that's going to give them hate. You understand it.
Yeah.
Do you just shrug it off, or do you under your breath, FFS, and get a bit frustrated?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it when you see it yourself in game?
When I come against other mouse and keyboard players, I kind of just go, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You know, can't be bothered with this. And there have been certain games, especially last season when I started going, like last season was more of my big push into ranked, but it was only in the last month of the season. And I came against quite a lot of mouse and keyboard players I actually recognized from various, like I was in a Discord server when I was mouse and keyboard, and there's a few names in there that I recognized, and I would recognize the gamer tags when I went against them last season. I was like, oh, God's sake, this isn't going to be fun. But for me, I'll just go, oh, well, it's just another game. I'll end up getting this elo back eventually, so I could care less.
All balances out. Yeah.
But for me, like if someone's using mouse and keyboard, I can't really complain because I did the same thing, and I kind of I fucked over other people's games, so it wasn't really fair. But I'm not
look at it as like a karma of some sort sometimes, or
yeah,
right, okay.
I won't I'm not generally going to send hate messages to people. I'm not that kind of person. At the end of the day, I'm just somebody who's on the internet, you know, watches YouTube, Twitter, who just ends up, you know, playing games for fun. And you know, for me, I don't want to ruin someone else's day by being a dick to them. So I generally won't send hate messages to other people.
Yeah.
Unless I'm like having a really bad day. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably the only exception that I'll send hate messages is maybe if like someone's stressing the servers and it's somebody I know who's definitely stressing the server. I'll just say like, can you not? I'll just say like, I won't swear because I'm not like that kind of person when I'm angry.
You get the comms ban as well. Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah.
You can put your point across politely, and it still can be just as effective.
Yeah. Kill them with kindness.
Yeah. I guess stressing and DDoSing is it's another level. That probably is a level above mouse and keyboard, because there's literally nothing you can do about it.
Whereas committing a legitimate crime.
Well, yeah. So you've gone back to use a controller. It makes you, well, you're happier using controller. Do you feel? So from when you did it to now, let's approach it a different way. Do you feel like the use of mouse and keyboard on Siege on console has actually gotten worse? It feels like it has. Do you notice that?
I see more nowadays that mouse and keyboard is a lot worse now than it was back when I was playing the game and health. Like, I didn't know that mouse and keyboard was actually, a thing in the game with the adapters and such until maybe midway through year 4 or something. Like, this was more around about the time where I was like, yeah, this is actually a lot worse than I thought.
Right.
I think the usage of mouse and keyboard has definitely increased. It's most definitely increased, and it's undeniable. But I think a factor for this is there's multiple factors in this, and a couple that come to mind are, they want a competitive advantage. They want to compete against other mouse and keyboard players, so they'll come against so many, and then they'll go, oh, screw this, I'll buy my own one.
Yeah.
And I actually see the second one quite a lot because people are sick and tired of coming against more mouse and keyboards.
Absolutely.
So you've got the company that makes this, they're making money because people who've already previously bought their product are angering other people, and that they're now feeling the pressure of, well, I can't compete and get into the rank I want to be in, so I have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I see quite a lot. People are coming against mouse and keyboard and they just can't be bothered, so they end up joining the same thing that they hate, essentially.
Yeah. When you said it that way, it reminded me of like the end of The Dark Knight, where they say you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, or whatever the line was. Okay. I think I kind of guess your answer to this, but do you think it's ruining the game on console?
Most definitely. Yeah. 100%. Mouse and keyboard is definitely ruining Siege on console. And at the end of the day, most people who are playing Siege are going to ultimately move to PC because, like, for most of the people I know at least, are planning to move to PC because it's more fun. And I would rather actually deal with in-game cheaters than I would with mouse and keyboard players.
Oh, really?
Because ultimately, cheaters will just get banned. You'll get your elo back. That doesn't happen on console.
Yeah, you don't see it on console. Yeah.
The only elo rollback you get is when you've lost elo to DDoSers and they get banned in game. So I think there's a lot of things that are ruining Siege as a whole, though, because you got mouse and keyboard, but there's a lot of other things in there as well.
Oh yeah.
But if we're sticking to the mouse and keyboard theme, because obviously you've got you got the macros basically, and you've got DDoSing, and those are the big three that are ruining Siege. And obviously the toxicity, but at the end of the day, just turn your message requests off and don't read them.
It's easy enough to get away from.
Just don't fucking read the messages.
Yeah.
That's what I do when I get messages nowadays.
Yeah.
But with like DDoSing, if you have to DDoS to win games, just stop playing games.
Well, you're not even winning the game, are you?
Yeah, you're committing a crime that can get you imprisonment, to win internet points, essentially, to get the sacred elo, so you can get your plat, diamond, charm, whatever the fuck you want. And you've got macros.
You get nothing more out of. Yeah, let's talk about. Do you have experience of macros? Not necessarily personally, but how much do you know about them?
So I know how macros work to a degree, but I would never use macros. For me, like when I was deciding to go either mouse and keyboard, or I did consider at one point, but at the end of the day, I looked at, what would happen if you did it on PC. Which was the only reason why I ended up going mouse and keyboard, because if you buy Cronus, you use macros on console, you don't have recoil, you're basically manipulating the game. Yeah. And it's the same thing with mouse and keyboard, but at least you still have to control the recoil on guns like the Scorpion or the F2. Yeah. Like, there's still, to a degree, a level of skill required to use mouse and keyboard. But if you're using macros to get rid of the recoil on controller, it just becomes, can you hit the head and just get the reticle to go over the head at any given point, and that's it.
Yeah, I was casting a game the other day for a league that I run, and someone came in and said, "Are you allowed to?" They said, "This is a controller tournament." Like, yes, controller tournament, controllers only. And then they asked about macros and stuff, and I said, "No, you're not allowed macros. It's the rules are Microsoft licensed controllers only. You could use an Elite or a Scuff, but macros give you an advantage for recoil, and it is cheating, and it's not something that's going to be allowed or should be allowed." And he was kind of like, recoil control. Oh, you're a noob if you can't control recoil. Using macros isn't cheating at all. I'm kind of like, I don't know, but it sounds like...
I don't know, I mean, didn't Shaiko get that ban? I mean, obviously...
Well, that's what I pointed out, yeah.
Yeah, like, Shaiko was banned for allegedly using macros. Nowadays, I mean...
Whether he did or not, we don't know, but that was the bad reason.
He's kind of killing it in Pro League and shit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he did get a ban for using macros. So, are you going to try and tell me that macros isn't cheating when a high-profile player a couple of years back got banned from Pro League for, I think it was 2 years, for allegedly using macros?
Exactly. I mean, that was my point. And he said, well, he wasn't using macros. And I said, well, whatever. I'm not here to say whether he did or he didn't. The fact is, they thought he was. He got banned. It's cheating.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So it's interesting that, okay. So I hadn't looked at it like that for the recoil control being, in your mind or anyone's mind, more of an issue than mouse and keyboard, because like you say, there is still a skill element. It's not like all of a sudden you don't have recoil to deal with just because you've got a mouse and keyboard. For like going back to the point of like macros and stuff, because obviously with mouse and keyboard, like obviously, recoil isn't just going to go away, but it is admittedly a lot easier to control on certain guns. I'll be perfectly honest, I find it a lot easier to actually control guns like the SMG11 on controller, as opposed to mouse and keyboard. I find myself controlling the SMG11 recoil so much better on controller. But that might just be because I'm not used to playing SMG11 on mouse and keyboard at the time. But when I played SMG11, I think I was using Sledge or something, ran out of ammo on the AR, and I just could not get used to controlling it on mouse and keyboard. But then I play Smoke or something on console, and I can control the recoil pretty much perfectly. Okay.
I mean, the only for me, the only thing scummier than using an MnK or is using both of them at the same time.
Oh yeah, I've heard people do that.
If you use and use yours at the same time, and you're using mouse and keyboard with recoil macros, you are genuinely scum of the earth. Stop playing the game. That's my stance on that. Like, you are genuine, like, dog shit if you're using both.
Fair enough.
You might as well be a copper on fucking controller if you're using both.
Well, yeah, there's even less of a sense of achievement if you're doing that. Yeah.
But, you might as well just go to PC and download some crappy cheat client.
So I guess this is an interesting question, actually. So when I know there's often an argument when someone is seen as playing mouse and keyboard, it's like, well, why don't you just go and play PC? Why did you choose to stick with console instead of just moving to PC?
For me, it was lack of money to purchase a PC.
Yeah, that's common.
Because at the end of the day, you can go to and buy a for something like £100 or however much it is now. You can buy a mouse and keyboard for it doesn't even need to be that good, so long as the DPI is high enough for to read it. You can pay maybe 30-40 quid to get a mouse and keyboard, and then on top of that you pay so you're paying maybe £150 for a mouse, a keyboard, and the adapter, whereas buying a PC that will run Siege at say 60 FPS, say you want the same FPS as console, most people go for higher than that.
Yeah.
Like you're forking out maybe 4 times that amount. So for me, it was the cost element of actually going to PC. Like right now, I do want to move to PC. I've wanted to move to PC for a long ass time, but at the end of the day, it's actually just a cost element that brought me over to mouse and keyboard on console as opposed to actually moving to PC.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense, and I think it's one of the more common perspectives that I've heard for it is the money aspect. Another aspect sometimes is I've got friends that play on Xbox and I want to still be able to play with them, but I can't play controller, and that's another one that you sometimes hear. But I think the cost aspect is one of the most obvious in-your-face reasons for it. 'Cause like you say, to get a decent gaming rig that's going to perform at the same level as an Xbox is going to cost you, like you say, a lot more money than just picking up and a cheap mouse and keyboard that you can use.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's probably it for my questions. Is there anything else on the subject that, I mean, when we spoke earlier, you said there's some things you wanted to get across. I mean, have you got them across, or is there some stuff that you'd like to still talk about?
Not particularly. I got what I really wanted to put forward, which was, like, even though I used mouse and keyboard for a couple seasons, I still view mouse and keyboard as cheating. And that's really it. Like, mouse and keyboard is most definitely cheating. Anybody that tries to say otherwise should probably just go message Ubisoft support and say, like, yo, ask them. Like, actually ask Ubisoft and get their, their word on it, because Microsoft and Ubisoft will both say, and have said in the past, that the use of third-party adapters which grant an unfair competitive advantage is cheating. So this includes using macros via or using a for mouse and keyboard. It's most definitely cheating.
Yeah.
No one can deny that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been much appreciated. Thank you for giving us your perspective on it, and it's good to hear that you went back to controller and you're now back to being one of us legit players, and maybe we'll come across each other in a game at some point.
Maybe.
All right, thank you very much.